Hello and welcome to Peace Propaganda, a twice weekly show about living peacefully. This is Adam.
And this is Becky.
We are broadcasting slightly less than live from the beautiful south side of Chicago. Thank you for tuning into the Wednesday show. As you know, the Wednesday show is where we get a little bit more esoteric. Things get weird here. The Unicorn Double Rainbow Studio.
Yes, that is it.
Finally got it right. What does it mean?
So now that I'm sure you've all sold your U.S. dollars since the Saturday episode.
You all listened to the Saturday episode where we advised getting away from fiat currency. Yes.
We can now move on to more pressing issues.
And what are those pressing issues? Give us a taste of what we're going to hear about today.
Well, we're going to be talking a little bit about a sort of personal experience that I've had with a specific public figure that is running for office, and I want to address sort of the intricacies of that.
Yes, the principles of running for office versus the principles of living a free life. Yeah. And as we teased, leading out of the Saturday show, we're going to be talking about bribery, about political bribery today, and why we think it should be legalized. Yes, so there's a little bit of teaser for you.
Sounds controversial.
That's right. Well, we're gonna get into that in just a little bit. But Becky, who is this public figure that you're talking about? Who is not living up to these principles?
So. Okay, I want to start with the fact that I generally have a lot of respect for this person. Her name is Marianne Williamson, and she has been a public figure in what could be considered, I guess, the spiritual community for a while. And I'll read you a quote so that you have an understanding of What
do you mean by spirituality?
So, I'll read you a quote so you have an understanding of her sort of brand of spirituality, of her understanding of spirituality or the world.
Hit me with it.
Okay. She says, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You are a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It's not just in some of us, it's in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others."
That's an interesting sentiment. And I'm certainly not privy to the spiritual community, so to speak, but that quote sounds familiar, so she must be pretty well known.
Yeah. It's a very famous quote. I actually think it's often been misattributed to Nelson Mandela.
Maybe
so
that's
that may be why. Yeah.
That may be why,
but regardless, I think it is a really, the quote sort of highlights the concept of freedom and what, and so
it's something that we talk about here a lot, which is that you can't expect freedom in the outside world until you yourself are free mentally from your own chains, from your own fear.
Until you stop placing limitations on yourself.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why, I'm going to be honest, when I found out that she was running for Congress over the last few weeks,
Did she just announce this?
I think it's recent.
Okay.
I'm not positive, but yeah, I honestly felt disappointed. But at this point, I'm learning to not place expectations on others because it leads to disappointment. And I'm not here to say that her path is other than what she thinks it is, because I'm sure that she believes that what's best is for her to be running for Congress, because I don't think she'd be doing it if she didn't feel that way.
Well, that's the premise of human action, right?
Yeah. But even so, I think it's worth discussing, the implications. So,
what do you mean by that?
So Albert Einstein has a quote that goes, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it."
No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it.
Right.
That's interesting.
And
that's pretty accurate, yeah.
And a lot of spiritual people, I think, resonate with that and have the tendency to emphasize the idea of living in the solution instead of in the problem, and focusing your energy on being the change you want to see, right?
I've heard that before, yeah.
Yeah. So it's all, you know, there's a lot of sort of freedom, conceptuality inside of spirituality generally. And so my concern is that we have this programming that is provided by public schools and things like that put these limits on us subconsciously.
What kind of programming?
The idea that the sort of ultimate way to create change is to go into the government.
Ah, yes.
And
that's right. If you're not voting, then you're not then you're part of the problem and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. Well, and that, you know, the pinnacle of sort of
social
helping the world
and
moving things along is you have to be in the government to do it.
Anyone who's ever been on the Capitol tour of the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. can attest to that. I used to work in the Capitol building in D.C. For a certain senator, and I would go through it all the time when I would take various guests on tours of the Capitol, and it's exactly what you're talking about. It was like literally like a sweeping John Williams score, not actually John Williams, but very similar. And it would be like flashing names of legislation of where like the government just really helped the little guy and stuff like that. And
it kind of makes me like a point
totally the narrative
that I want to make is that like another point that I want to make is that like, when you have an institution like that, that's always like really, it takes itself so seriously, you really have to wonder, like, there's a lot of ego going on there, when you can't sort of laugh at yourself. And I feel like the U.S. government is certainly not an institution that's fond of like poking fun at themselves,
Nope.
They're very serious. And like you said, what was it, John?
What were you saying?
The music playing in the background.
John Williams, yeah.
Yeah, it's sort of the epitome of look how grand we are. We are gods among men kind of thing.
I mean, you can't gallivant around the world with the most powerful military the world has ever seen on Monday and then put on a clown show on Tuesday. It doesn't really work. They kind of have to take themselves that seriously.
Right.
And I think that dovetails really nicely into what you're talking about, which is that as I understand it, at least the principles of spirituality as you have laid them out to me, as far as I know, is very contradictory with the idea of taking yourself so hyper seriously that you would be willing to push your ideas onto other people.
So, but she talks about, even in her quote, how we all have the light of God in us, basically, like, we're all meant to shine. And I think a lot of people sometimes think that government is this way to do that. But the reality, right, is that it's more a way to stifle other people's light.
Right. I mean, the only people, if you have a centralized institution of violence, the only people that's going to assist are the people who are holding the guns. Right.
And so going into Congress is really, it's living in the problem. And to think that, oh, well, I'm a different kind of congressperson. I'm a spiritual congressperson. None of the previous ones have been spiritual. Her slogan for running is politics with a conscience. Ugh. Which, it bothers me a little bit, because it does make this assumption that all the people before her running for Congress have been just total, ingrates. And I don't think that's
it's so presumptuous.
Real. Yeah.
Not only is it presumptuous, like you say, that it suggests that everybody else had ill motives, but it also suggests that it's even possible for politics to have a conscience. No. I don't know. It's wrong no matter how you slice it. Hey, we got the music coming up. We'll be back with more peace propaganda right after this.
I want to take this opportunity to tell you about Sean's Outpost, a homeless outreach program which has provided over 20,000 meals to the homeless in Northwest Florida. They're also funded entirely through Bitcoin donations. They are proving that we can address the problems in our community without the state, without its predatory welfare programs, and without its Ponzi money. Recently, Sean's Outpost launched its newest, boldest initiative, Satoshi Forest, a 9-acre homeless sanctuary where they are teaching permaculture, aquaponics, and self-sufficiency to the homeless residents. No one sticks a gun in anyone's face and makes them donate to Sean's Outpost, and yet, every day, people do. Please consider donating to this inspiring cause. Visit seansoutpost.com. That's SEANS outpost.com.
All right, welcome back to Peace Propaganda, our Wednesday episode. Things are getting weird. It's getting esoteric. Weird in the best possible way, of course. Oh, I love that song, We Didn't Start the Fire. We talked about replacing the opening theme with that, but we didn't want to deprive you of your reggae fix.
But it's an excellent song and totally worth a full listen if you're
That's right.
Craving some Billy Joel.
Love me some Billy Joel.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to thank the listeners again for your purchases on Amazon. It's really helping. It's we're able to get some new equipment for the studio. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, we have a link in the show notes where you can go and do all of your Amazon shopping through our affiliate link at no cost to you. The studio here will get a small commission. I think you get a small stipend for us to live on to eat our beans and rice.
What?
No, and of course you can always email us if you liked anything that Becky said, or if you hated something that I said. You can email us at host.peacepropaganda@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at Peace Podcast. Have some interesting conversations on Twitter sometimes, and of course we're on Facebook at Peace Propaganda. Just search. And there for us, we got the YouTube channel, if you prefer to listen on YouTube. I wanted to make a quick note about the SoundCloud app. It was brought to my attention by longtime listener Liam that sometimes the SoundCloud app doesn't update. He had contacted us here at the show, and he said, "Hey, where's the newest episode?" And I said, "Well, we uploaded it days ago." And so just for you SoundCloud listeners, know that the app doesn't update correctly sometimes. So anyways, enough shop. You sort of got cut off in the middle of your thought there, Becky.
Yeah, I want to just put some finishing touches on the Marianne Williamson run for Congress. And I think that, we tend to get stuck at this glass ceiling that is programmed into us as children, of government being the ultimate way to change the world. And but when we do get stuck at that glass ceiling, we are living in the problem, and we need to transcend that level of consciousness in order to solve the problem, like Einstein said. And I guess the final quote that I want to leave this conversation with is one from Martin Luther King, where he says, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that." And
that's true.
So I think that's the leap of consciousness that we need to make. It's the, you don't have to call it hate, but this idea that I'm different from those people without a conscience, right? They're not me, and they need to be corrected. That is the consciousness that's causing the problems. And so the leap of consciousness that we need to make to solve the problems is we need to love everyone. Unconditionally. And that's a hard leap to make for sure, but I think it's truly the only way we get there, because the reality is that when you hate someone, the only thing you can ever hate is yourself. You can't hate something outside of you because there isn't anything outside of you. This is all one thing. There's no separation. And that's I know there's disagreement on this.
Yeah,
for sure.
I find myself hating, rapists and murderers and things like that. Well, I take you're speaking on more of a spiritual level,
right? So I'm speaking so I guess what I'm saying is I can love Marianne Williamson despite her actions, because I know that she, at the deepest core level, is not her actions. She is me at the deepest core level.
I confess I'm not maybe I'm just not versed enough in the idea of spiritualism, but I'm a little lost on that.
It's kind of a subtle thing that, you know, I think there are certain psychedelics that will show you that very clearly. And certain, you know, just sort of spiritual experiences.
I guess I haven't done the requisite amount of research.
that will make you recognize that you're not separate from any of the people on this planet or from this planet. You are fully interdependent and interconnected, and sort of, I guess, I imply everything that's not me.
Okay. Well, you're going to have to reconcile a bit of schizophrenia on your part because I, being part of you, disagree with you. but that's okay.
I'm allowed to disagree with myself.
But so when we were talking about this figure, what was her name again?
Marianne Williamson.
Yes, Marianne Williamson. One of the things that came up was sort of what would be the kind of positions that a politician, or what was it, politics with a conscience? What would be some of the
conscience? Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you. What would be the sort of the platform of such a person? And one of the topics that we brought up was the idea of bribery. You know, how do most people who fashion themselves forward-thinking, government advocates, how do they fashion themselves? What things do they advocate? And we think, justly, I think, that they would come down pretty hard on bribery, the idea of bribery, of money for service when it comes to political favors.
Right.
Yeah. So I take a completely different stance. I think that, in fact, the system that we have now, where we try to outlaw bribery, only makes the problem worse. It's
the whole like black market thing, just like with drugs.
Exactly.
When you say you're not allowed to do this, people just jump, bend over backwards to do it the legal way. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And so let's be perfectly clear here. If you think that there isn't bribery happening in the U.S. government and every government, go ahead and raise your hand. And then pick up a book with your other hand, because you're dead wrong. It's happening. It's par for the course all the time. Okay, so the idea that the anti-bribery laws are stopping it is complete nonsense.
I mean, whenever you centralize power, you're going to have people vying for it with money, right? I mean, that's just the way that it will be.
Yeah, and this goes back to our argument about the recent Supreme Court ruling about now there are unlimited campaign donations, and we both said that actually, even in the internal logic of democracy, that's a good thing, because the fact is there were people giving way more than the legally allowed amount, and they were getting away with it because they were just so hyper connected that they were never going to get prosecuted.
Yeah,
and the same thing's happening now with bribery. The biggest companies are funding both sides with the implicit understanding that no matter who gets elected, nobody's going to come down on GE. Nobody's going to, close the gaps for Halliburton or, any of these, mega companies.
Right. It exists to uphold the wishes of the entities that are supporting the government.
Right. Of course. And who's doing the most bribing, of course, would be JP Morgan, would be, all of these giant financial institutions. I mean, Jamie Dimon's probably the most powerful man on earth. He's the CEO of JP Morgan, and it's because he's allowed to fund, or not that he's allowed, but that he in fact does fund both sides of every political race in America.
Yeah,
and
probably
around the world.
If he didn't have that platform, then he would have to find a way to be powerful in his own right?
Right. And so how does this relate to bribery? So I'll speak for myself. What I'm saying is that don't call it bribery. Just call it, I'm paying you to do something for me. Okay. Mm-hmm. Now that it's out in the open, at least we can see what's going on. Oh, JP Morgan is paying Barack Obama to be in office.
Money because it's above ground, right?
Right. Yeah. Chances are Barack Obama's going to do something good for JP Morgan.
Yeah.
We want to have that as above board as possible. But hey, we'll be right back with more from Peace Propaganda. Down hard and drown me in love. So come on, get higher, loosen my lips, faith and Hey, Becky, I was having this dream the other night where I was taking a test and then all my teeth fell out and then everybody died.
Wow, Adam, that sounds pretty intense. But there are people who can help you interpret those.
Really? Where?
Well, during the last weekend in April, students from the School of Metaphysics, aided by professional dream coaches from dreamschool.org, will be fielding calls from around the world, answering questions about dreams and interpreting them for 54 hours straight.
Wow, how can I get in contact with them?
You can call them at 773-427-0155 from 6 p.m. Central Time on April 25th to midnight on April 27th with your dream questions.
Wow, I'm definitely going to do that. Where can I find more information?
They have a Facebook page called 26th Annual National Dream Hotline Weekend.
26th Annual National Dream Hotline Weekend? I'm definitely going to go to that Facebook page.
Good, it sounds like you have some real stuff to work out.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Some Black Sabbath for you. Loving the music for today's episode. But hey, before the break, we were talking about how legalizing bribery is actually more democratic. So maybe the first thing we should do is dispel the use of the term bribery.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a weapon of the enemy. I mean, it's, as I said just before the break, it's just money for services. Mm-hmm. Now let's be clear. Becky and I both disagree with the institution of government. I think democracy is an evil institution, no matter how you slice it. That said, within its own internal logic, if some people are getting away with this, and they are, and in fact, it's basically required for government to function that these backdoor deals are occurring, open up that field to everybody else. Why not?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me. But
yeah, I mean. When you brought up J.P. Morgan, the first thought that I had also was that we're in times where we're starting to see these banker suicides. This is pretty unrelated, but topic change.
That's okay.
And I think that that's a real sign of things to come. Like when you start seeing bankers. I mean, we started to see this before the 2008 crash, I believe.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this actually.
Oh, okay. I mean, so there's been a long line of banker suicides.
That's terrible.
Yeah. And what's happening there, I think, is that these bankers who are really close to the dysfunction and can see it very clearly are starting to see that this paradigm is nearing its close. There's not really, any further we can take it. And they're realizing that, they're going to be ruined. Their careers are going to be ruined. People are generally avoiding working at banks. I saw a friend of mine on Facebook looking for a job and someone said, "Oh, you could work at this bank." And he was like, trying to avoid that right now. Right. Because, it's not the place to be right now because we do all have this understanding that something's about to go down.
Or, I mean, even if it's a secure job and you think it's a secure job, I think a lot of people don't want to work there just because it's so, morally bankrupt.
Yeah.
And
that's true too.
That was my old job. I worked at a law firm and we represented, all, you name a big bank and we represented them. Mm-hmm. And it was awful.
Yeah.
Just going to work
the corruption every day kind of bleeds, right?
Yeah, right. Oh, here's that JP Morgan file. Oh, here's that, BMO file and, whatever, all these other banks. And who wants to be surrounded by that?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, when you get people like, I think, when the paradigm is about to shift like it is, I think we're really close. And that's what the suicides are sort of the first warning shot into the air. But the reason that people commit suicide in a situation like this is because their mind is stuck in the old paradigm and they can't see a way forward if not the way that they were going. And so they say, well, this is the end, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing else to live for. And I can't, so I think it's really important for people to sort of recognize the importance of brain plasticity and being able to like let go of the old beliefs and old paradigms and be able to change their mind to say, okay, so this didn't work out, but there are other ways forward. There are other solutions. And if we're just patient and, you know, kind of trust that things are going to work out instead of just giving up, I think we can change the paradigm instead of just ending our lives individually or whatever.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And there's a lot of very cool projects that are coming out to sort of you know, give people a soft landing, you know, at the end of this current paradigm of banking. And you know, I don't want to rehash everything that we've already talked about on the show, but you know, MadeSafe is an amazing platform that recently launched. Highly recommend that you look into that if you haven't already. Then of course Bitcoin. I think I have to put a quarter in the Bitcoin jar now because I'm the first one to bring up Bitcoin this episode. Me and Becky were saying that every episode we talk about Bitcoin, so now it's a contest to see who's the first one to bring up Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Oh, do I have to put a quarter in it or a Satoshi? How does that work?
Well, I mean, the number of Satoshis equivalent of a quarter, yeah. Although that's
now we're pegging it to the dollar. That's against the spirit of Bitcoin.
Well, it's so volatile right now. No, but yeah, I mean, because it's the Wednesday show and we do esoteric stuff on the Wednesday show, I do want to, like, I've just been really wanting to make this point out loud, and it's that I think going into the future is going to require of all of us the ability to change or open our minds along with the ability to open our hearts, because there's just, you know, the world right now, it doesn't need to be saved. It needs to be loved. It wants to be loved. That's what people want. And if we can give that to them, we can change the world.
Yeah. It's a beautiful sentiment. And before the show, we were talking about this Marianne Wilson, right?
Williamson.
Sorry, Marianne Williamson. We were talking about her, and you had mentioned that she was a hippie in her youth, and she was part of the hippie movement. And
yeah, I'm not sure about the accuracy of that, but my impression was that she was part of that movement.
Fellow traveler, at least. So certainly sympathetic to some of the ideas. And either way, there are many hippies that, as you say, they got suckered in by this glass ceiling. You know, they gave in to fear, and they went into government and tried to change the system from within, tried to turn a mafia into a charity, so to speak. Yeah. And I think that the unsung heroes of that generation were the people who didn't. Yeah. You know, the people who said, no, God, you know, we're going to do a different thing. People who moved out into the desert and you know, just tried their own thing. I'm not saying you have to move into the desert.
I'm gonna walk my talk, right?
Yeah.
I'm not just saying these words because they're pretty. I'm saying them because they're coming from a deep place in me that knows that what we're doing here is not the way to solve our problems.
Yeah, that's absolutely right.
So basically what I'm saying is, you know, we have to rise above government. Government is our current limitation in our minds. We have, you know, we have been implanted with this limitation of government is the ultimate in changing the world, and we need to rise above it. And that's the only way that we sort of overcome the paradigm of government, basically, is to rise above. It's not to join it, right?
Right.
It's to rise.
Yeah, I mean, I think the integral thing to understand there is that there are limitations built into any government. Mm-hmm. You know, and you know, admittedly, a lot of the Western, you know, first world nation governments have maybe fewer limitations than previous governments. But you know, think about it in a historical context. Who's going to influence, you know, Cleopatra's government and turn it into, you know, any kind of utopia? You know, who's going to influence, you know, late Rome when they were being ruled by a dictatorship, or Nazi Germany? You know, my point is that governments have systemic, you know, sort of built-in ways that they have to function, or they cease to exist.
Right, and the way that you do overcome them is an an uprising from the people. And I don't mean a violent uprising. I mean an uprising of everybody standing in their own power and saying, enough. This is enough. Yeah. I run my life.
I look forward to the people and projects that facilitate that future, but I'm sure it'll be a better world once these old systems cease to
fall
be.
Away.
That's right. That's right. Well, I think that just about does it for our Wednesday show. As advertised, it was controversial and strange.
As always.
That's right. If you liked anything that Becky said or hated anything that I said, please contact us here at host.peacepropaganda@gmail.com. Of course, you can find us on Twitter at Peace Podcast. You can subscribe to us on SoundCloud so you're not just catching a random episode here and there. Who knows what you may be missing? The Saturday show, it was brilliant, if I don't mind saying so myself.
Yeah, I would say so too.
Just a quick programming note, our next episode will actually be on Sunday, not on Saturday. So we look forward to seeing you then.
And today was Wednesday, April 16th, 2014.
Have a great week.
Somebody came and took your bed. Don't worry. Be happy. The landlord say your rent is late. He may have to litigate. Don't worry.